Welcome back to Zero Gravity Live, your weightless weekly tech podcast, bringing all the latest and greatest and coolest discussions right to you. I'm Anthony Cusimano, joined by my very good friend Sterling and our first-time guest Tracy. Thanks for joining us today. How are you doing, Tracy?
I'm good. Went through a
Good to
hurricane,
hear.
but I have internet.
I want to talk about that hurricane in just a minute, and that might give away where you're watching from. And I just want to shout out to our audience. Let us know where y'all are watching from. And if you're in hurricane territory, please let us know. I myself am ready as a Floridian. I know, Tracy, you just survived one, but do chat us up. Let us know where you're watching from. And if you're on the YouTubes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It actually helps. We don't just say that because it's a meme and it's funny. It does help. So please.
So true.
Help us out here. So Tracy, how is the hurricane? Like, what's going on there? Like,
are you okay?
You survived, you're here, but what's the deal?
I'm good. So I lost power for 6 hours. I think the rest of my family don't have power yet. I think it was over 2 million of us that lost power, and they think they'll restore about 1 million by Wednesday. So we also have a heat advisory today. So thankful to these people.
Jeez.
Just getting hit from all sides. I mean, if it's not enough that there's damage from the winds, damage from the rain, and all that other stuff, now the power's out and it's brutally hot, huh?
Houston things.
Sterling, have you survived a hurricane? Have you been through one?
I have never actually been through a hurricane. I want to say back in 2002, maybe, there was a hurricane that ripped through the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And it caused some outages, power lines, trees, but nothing that we see currently going through sort of through the center of the country, and then of course in Florida. What about you?
Oh, I've been through many. I've been let's see, at least 10 in my life.
Okay.
The worst one was the first one. Well, technically it wasn't the first. I was a baby when we had the first one, but the first one I remember was Charlie, and I think if you were alive during Charlie, you probably remember like all the video of devastation. Like, we lost power for 2 weeks. I think I was in my 10, 11, 12s at the time. So like not having power as a kid, we'll talk about what I did in a second, but it was rough. It was really rough. But I do remember like not having air conditioning. It was like heat of the Florida time. Like, you just sleep with no sheets on, if you can sleep at all, because it's so hot. So I can't imagine heat advisory in Houston. Geez, at least it's dry there. I mean, is it dry post-hurricane? Because you get a lot of rain, but I would assume it dries up pretty quick.
Yeah, it dries up, but it's super humid. There's some roads that are still flooded. I saw some pictures. I feel like I live on a higher point, so it's not as bad as everywhere else. So I'm thankful.
Yeah.
Well, one of the questions that I have here is that if you listen to the news, there were some audio blurbs that came out where the leaders of the respective towns were literally, if you can hear this, shelter in place, do not leave the house. There are other times that I hear, if you hear this, evacuate, get up, get to higher ground, get all these other things. With both of you having been through some of these things, when do you know to do what, or wait it out, or hang in the house with the comforter off of you to stay cool versus hopping in the car and heading for higher ground?
I'll let Anthony.
Tracy, I'll let you go. Oh, well, I mean, you just went through it. Did they give you any warning or advisory?
Honestly, not really. And I think after going through quite a few already, it's kind of hit or miss. Like, the first few times it's like, okay, we need to evacuate, we need to get out of here. Now it's like, oh, it's just a category 1. Like, we'll be fine. We'll just live through it. Lately, the cell towers have been bad, though, so we don't really hear anything. When you lose power, you lose everything. Like, my parents still don't have power. I'm trying to call them. The phone drops in like a second. And same with my brother as well. So it's kind of talking.
You text?
We text, but it's stuck on sending. So we'll see.
So everything is out.
I live in a pretty high part of Orlando. Like, I live in one of the highest elevation areas in Central Florida, which is great for me. I also live right next to a high school, which is a shelter, and we are now on their power grid, which is also great for me. But the typical sort of hurricane affair, it used to be you'd watch TV and based on your local news location, you'd figure out where to go. We always had battery powered radios growing up because if you lose power, you don't have TV, but radio waves are always going. So we'd listen to the radio, and that was a growing up thing. Nowadays, cell phones, we've never lost cell service since they've kind of become in vogue in Florida. And I think that's just because we had to, basically after Charlie happened, there was new codes made for building, and you couldn't build the buildings the way you used to, and you can't build structures the way you used to. Everything has to be cinder block. And it prevented a lot of, we never lose cell service ever. Rarely you'll lose power because of power lines. The coasts are the real danger point, and they will tell you to evacuate depending on the category of the storm. We also have hurricane sirens or tornado sirens, and they'll go off, and it sounds like you're about to be bombed, but actually it just means like go to a central place in your house because there's a tornado coming by. So I've been fortunate. It's always just been power and roof damage, but the closer you go to the coast, the more danger you carry.
The more danger, the more you got there. One more question for Tracy. I read something. They had an essentials kit, to make sure you can make it safely and comfortably through some of these storms. In Texas, one of the listings on there was brisket. Is that true? Can you verify that one would need brisket to make it through successfully that storm?
You know what, Sterling? That surprised me too. Honestly, HEB is like one of the biggest grocery stores here, and it limited customers to 2 packs of brisket each. And I was like, I don't understand. But the last hurricane we got, nobody went to the stores to buy water. They loaded up on brisket and beer, and I was like, yeah, that's just Texas.
That's phenomenal.
Awesome. Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome. One last thing about hurricanes, and we can move on. I don't know if y'all have ever gone through this, but we always fill up our bathtub with water, and we have a life straw, because more likely than not, the water gets contaminated. That's like your biggest risk. And we have this cool little life straw that filters out like 99.9% bacteria, so you can just drink out of the bathtub if you need it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's the stuff you never think about when you're in areas where you don't hit that stuff. But you're right. It's 2 days on, you don't have power, there's no water, the water's contaminated. Where are you going to go?
That's right.
Life straw in the bathtub.
That's right. Or you go to the local, fishing pond and just slurp up that fish water right to the life straw. 99.9%. You know what I'm saying?
Oof. All right. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for filling us in on your situation. We're glad you're safe, Tracy, and we're glad you're with us today. Internet willing, we'll get through the show, and you can get back to dealing with the aftermath of the hurricane. But I did, before we started, we play a game called What's in Your Office, and you were just telling me about how something in your office was causing trouble on your previous call, and I was wondering, would you be willing to share that with us today?
Yeah, let me just grab him. This guy. Isn't he cute?
That is awesome.
Now, what was going on with him?
Okay, so I always have this guy in the little corner of my desk here. Normally, the background's really good at blurring things out that aren't humans. Except one day, I don't know why, he just kept going in and out, in and out. And it was like a consistent like flashing. So it just threw me off completely.
So your story gave me an idea that I really want to figure out how to make happen. But I want to get a really creepy ghost mask. And someday when I'm not using this background, get a nice, good virtual background, just have this creepy face pop in and out of the frame.
Just hanging in the back there.
October time, you watch out, Sterling. It's gonna happen.
Actually,
I'm gonna do this.
That'd be pretty awesome. I'm call me subscribed on that one. But that must have been hilarious, Tracy, to see this sort of blue thing. I mean, were you being stalked by something? People are listening, but you're should I warn her? That's actually pretty funny.
I was mid demo and I look over and I just see him and I'm trying to keep my cool. I'm like, I don't know if these people know Pokemon. I don't know if they'd be into it. So I'm just gonna try to shove them away.
That's hilarious.
I love it. Well, your idea inspired me for my idea, because I've not played What's in Your Office recently. I went and grabbed my original Game Boy Pocket with Game Boy camera attachment. And if I had batteries on, I could probably load this thing up and show you some pictures I took of me when I was 12 years old. But this thing played a heck of a lot of Pokemon when I was a child. This was the thing I did during hurricanes, because we had no power, but we had Pokemon. And it's an associated memory for me. So it's just funny They all things come together, and it's an OG. I've kept it around because it's precious to me.
That's pretty awesome. I don't think I've ever seen the one with the camera on top. Did I kind of miss that? Is that like an old school kind of 8-bit sort of a camera?
Yeah,
What
it's
slides
the
on like a
peripheral.
cartridge?
Well, it's a game and a peripheral that Nintendo made. You plop it in just like a regular game cartridge, but it has a camera on it, and you can turn it the other way too. It's kind of like the original selfie cam because this is
Interesting.
black and white. It only takes black and white photos. You could also get a printer and print out your really poorly pixelated photos, but it was just a weird little thing, like it didn't serve any purpose. It's just, how a lot of times Japan comes up with this really fun but like wacky technology that will sometimes creep its way into the States. That's the Game Boy camera. Like all the way. The thing was just bizarre, but I love it.
And back in those days, it was moving and changing. I'm talking about the whole cameras and cameras being mobile and cameras having, this has a flash, but this didn't. And I remember the very first handhelds, Windows Mobile OS and some others, they had these attachments you can kind of plug into them and kind of take those things. Speaking of something wacky, when I was a kid, I had a video camera. It was only black and white, and it was sort of pixelated like you were talking about, but it recorded on regular video onto cassette tapes.
Whoa.
Yeah,
that's
so
weird.
Really wacky. It reminded me when you said that, because all of these things, as the industry was sort of burgeoning, right? And we saw all of these sort of, is this going to catch on? Is that going to catch on? And it was sort of a kid friendly, and it just used regular cassette tapes, and it recorded video and audio on it. It was pretty cool.
I didn't know that was possible. Like,
Pretty cool.
I didn't know you could record the cassette tape.
It was strange.
Weird.
I'll try to see if I can find it and bring a link up for the next show.
I want a YouTube video of that one.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, cool. Sterling, you've also got something to share with us today, right?
We were talking a little bit about Pokemon and a little bit about gaming as I'm considering some upgrades to my home setup here that we were discussing before. Won't bring that up right now because I don't want to irk the gods. I seem to be moving along pretty well. But that reminded me of something that a good friend of mine, Chris, if you're watching, this is for you, buddy. But he gave me this years ago. He's into model builds. He's into gaming. He's into all of these types of things. I've had this in my office, and I realized I don't really know what this is. And I would love to ask anyone out there what this is that he gave to me.
I know exactly what that is.
What is this?
Can you hold the little helmet a little closer to your camera?
Absolutely.
So I'm guessing it's green, and that's why
it is absolutely green, and that's why the green screen. Yes.
So that is a Mobile Suit Gundam. I don't know the exact number. It's not an RX-78 it's not an RX-78. RX-78 is like the Gundam everyone associates with Gundam. It is his like little brother counterpart. So it's one that helps him. He doesn't have the right helmet for RX-78, and RX-78 has a blue chest. Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's pretty
that
intricate.
is
these are details that you're rambling off like, okay, so this is the thing.
Yeah. He's got the same shield. He's got the rifle. I can identify all of that. He's also got the right build, but his helmet is different. So he's a lesser Gundam. I don't even think. I mean, in the Gundam hierarchy, he might not even qualify as a Gundam, even though it is a Gunpla figure.
Okay. Interesting.
Gundams are like high tech.
They're very high tech, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
interesting.
I could go on, but I think I've identified that for you.
Right. Did you see that, Tracy? Did you see? Literally just showed him this over a video, and that was the end.
I could get the name, but I won't. I will. We'll leave that a mystery for you to figure out on your own now that I've given you the clues.
That's fair.
Is it a model or is it a toy?
This is literally just
Can you pull the things apart?
You know what? Yeah. His arm just came off.
I think that is a real grade figure. So yeah, it's a real grade model. The Gundams come in various, or Gunpla, I should say, come in various models. Real grade being the tiny one you got there. There's high grade, master grade, and perfect grade. And those perfect grades can get anywhere from $300 to $1,000 to build. So
what? Okay, so can I put this on eBay for a couple grand right now?
Your little real grade there, or I guess he's a high grade. He's like $10.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm holding on to it because one day maybe it'll be worth a few grand.
we can only hope, right? Like,
Yeah.
I hope this entire office is
internal.
full
That's
of random.
right. Your whole office would buy the house probably.
I gotta highlight. Meredith gave us a comment. It's like a little like Antiques Roadshow.
What's it worth? What's it worth?
It's the anime plastic roadshow going on in here today. Indeed. Well, I won't belabor the anime plastic roadshow any longer. We did have a topic to talk about today. Before we get into AI scams, Sterling, did you want to bring up anything today?
Absolutely. You know, we talk a lot about, hygiene on this show. Remember, we're sponsored by Object First, the makers of Oopie. And of course, what
Tracy was doing demos earlier.
She's literally doing demos with the Pokemon in the background. But we talk about a lot about what it takes to keep your data safe today. And obviously, Oopie does that by providing a place to land your data that has zero access to root. But what are some of the other things that we can really do to make sure our hygiene is okay? Well, sometimes to figure out what you should be doing, it's great to take a look at what you already are doing that you shouldn't be doing.
Oh.
And so I would just like to share with everybody the 5 most common cybersecurity mistakes. Now, this is a great article. It actually goes down through and lists exactly why, and sort of goes into sort of the how they did their research. It's a pretty good read. However, I'll just skip right down to this so we can kind of see it all at once right here. Hopefully, you all can see that. So some of the most common cybersecurity mistakes, and 71 respondents admitted to doing one or a few of these things. And maybe I'd like to ask somebody, because we all here and all of those listening, none of us make any of these mistakes, right? So, but I'm sure we know somebody that makes some of these mistakes. For instance, 29% using their work device for personal activities.
That number's low.
That number's really low. You mean to tell me nobody opens up Amazon or eBay or something? So, on their work laptop, reusing or resharing a password. Now, some of these things have sort of been obfuscated and made a little bit easier with some of the programs we have now that can remember some of those passwords. That could be a conversation within itself. But reusing or sharing passwords, 26%. Connecting without a VPN at a public place. Tisk tisk, people. You should always be using VPNs. That Starbucks Wi-Fi isn't as awesome as it looks. 24% responding to a message from someone they don't know. I recently had a friend tell me that what he likes to do when he gets these random messages that go, hello, or the random messages that go, hey, I'd like to read and help your debt, by this much. He likes to actually respond to say, you know what, I'm not going to give you the gift card. I'm not going to do this. I know who you are. Guys, don't do that at all either, because then that number is now marked as a live number, and you're going to get more spam calls. So, Don't talk with the bad guy. But we found out almost 25% do that. And of course, accessing inappropriate websites, and we're just gonna kind of leave that there. But just know that when you go and do certain things, you're opening up those attack vectors, just like we talk about in the ways in when you used to save your data. Direct attached storage may be the fastest way to do that, but it's completely wide open as far as some security protocols. If you're using some sort of a dedupe device, just remember it has to bring that stuff back and land it in an area completely unprotected before you actually restore it. So those same things we think about in the industry, we should also be thinking about in our personal life. What do you all think?
Tracy, I'll let you go first.
Honestly, looking at this, I will say I'm a little bit guilty on some of these cybersecurity mistakes. You share a Netflix password with the rest of your family, now that they don't let you do that, but very, very similar. So.
Yep. That's absolutely right.
I mean, number one, I feel like number one's really low. Using work device for personal activity, like 29% seems incredibly low, and I'll give you the reason why. I almost feel like it's impossible. All of our accounts are connected now. Like, I'm on a Mac. My iCloud account is what I use to log in, but all of my, business email and personal are shared because of that singular account. I think the same thing falls true for, Google. If you're using a Gmail account, or if you have a shared Microsoft account, like, it becomes really hard to not intermingle those lives together. Now, obviously, you're not installing Minecraft on your gaming or your work laptop and playing that all day, or maybe you do. Maybe this number needs to be a little higher. But I think the first one's near impossible to be this low. And I also feel like unless you're in a federal institution where we create this account just for you to use in here, you can only get in the local network, like it's not accessing the local things or the things that are personal to you that is the problem. It's not understanding how one impacts the other and vice versa. And like that's why password sharing is a risk. I saw an article today. I wasn't going to bring it up on the show, but I was like, this is kind of crazy. It's like 10 billion passwords just popped up on the internet. It was called like the RockU leak, RockU 2024. 10 billion passwords. I'm sure one of each of our passwords are in there. If we Control F, I bet you we could find it. But it's not the things you do so much as, like you said, it's the hygiene. It's the taking the time to really ensure that the best practices are maintained and met when it comes to these cybersecurity type situations.
Absolutely. I think this really draws down on something that I think a lot of corporate companies have been dealing with for a long time, or corporate infrastructures with companies, which is a lot of shadow IT. When you mix and blend those two accounts, you kind of get some ingress egress of some data, whether it's on purpose or not. So I feel like they were talking about that there, but that seems super low. You mean to tell me only a third of people are actually using that work device for personal activities when many of us carry one device because it can do everything? Doubtful. There's one more thing I'd like to point out here that isn't on this list that I was super surprised wasn't. In the days of home automation, in the days where everything is connected to your Wi-Fi, leaving those passwords as stock passwords, that has to be super high on this list, and I didn't see it. So I just thought that was pretty interesting.
That's a really good one. And, I think that's one that a lot of people just fall victim to because they don't know any better. They assume like, Spectrum gave me my router, and Spectrum wouldn't make me cyber insecure, so I'm just gonna use the password they gave me. It's like, you gotta change that stuff.
That's right. It's hard to know all of this stuff, everybody, without being a security expert. It's almost like you need to have somebody holding your hand around today to say, don't do this, don't do this. Once again, to shout out our sponsors, Object First. That's kind of exactly the premise of OOTB, isn't it? To bring the highest level of security without having somebody be a security expert, because it's getting scary out there, y'all.
Well, to your point, it's even harder when it's in the workplace. Like cybersecurity at home, difficult. Cybersecurity in enterprise IT, stupid hard. And I'm sure, Tracy, you've talked to numerous customers out there that just feel like, I don't want to spend more time learning how to secure storage.
Yeah, they're just like, it's just my backup. Like, why do people attack it first? How do I restore from it? It's my last option. And they're like, we spend way too much time doing this.
Hey, you know what, Anthony, but before we move forward, Tracy just mentioned something really interesting. And we started this call talking about, natural disasters. And natural disasters was really, that was the first piece that sort of predicated, disaster recovery scenarios and backups and having backups in different places. And now, obviously, we speak about something very different with the attack vector being sort of a people manipulation, trying to steal the data. Tracy, when you're talking to customers, where is the fear unlocked sort of lie right now? Are more people worried about, literally something could come through and drown out my data center. I need to have something like OOTB that I know is safe in another place, or I'm worried about this guy who's been trying to hack into our environment for 3 to 4 months. So what are you seeing and hearing?
Yeah, so I feel like initially they started with, hey, if we were talking to you about 10 years ago, it's a flood, it's a storm, it's a hurricane, a fire. Now there's ransomware, there's insider threat. Like, how do we prevent that? Yeah, I can take a hammer to the box, but it's more likely that somebody else will be trying to steal my data before that would happen.
It's a very good point.
It's
a very good point. I always love hearing that.
I've been biting my tongue and biding my time because I feel like a lot of the conversations we've had today are going to tie so well into our overarching topic.
Yes.
So I'm going to hit this.
Let's do it.
It just fits so well with the conversation we're having right now. So I found this article on TechCrunch, AI-powered scams and what you can do about them. And it's a really great article. I recommend, if you have the time, go to techcrunch.com, read this article because it's well put together. This is also something I recommend you send to your parents your loved ones, and those you care about that are not as technical as you might be. And it's just a really good list. So number one, it starts with voice cloning of family and friends. And we've talked about this a lot on the show. We've actually talked about voice and facial cloning or puppetry using AI and deepfake technology. And it gives you a little background on what it is, and then it gives you a how you can fight back. And the first thing they said, and you were kind of alluding to this earlier, don't bother trying to spot a fake voice. They're getting better every day. In a lot of ways to disguise inequality issues. Instead, like, call the number, right? Like, instead of going out and responding directly to this shady number claiming to be your brother, contact your brother directly through the normal number you talk to them through and validate they're fine. It's this whole article is full of these things. So personalized phishing and spam via email and messaging. How can you fight back against email spam? Vigilance is your best weapon, but don't expect to detect generated text from human written text in the wild. There are a few who can, and certainly not an AI model. And it just kind of goes on to explain some more of these things. But I'm wondering, like, before we hit the rest of these, have y'all run into these two yet? Like AI generated email text or human voice phishing on the phone?
Tracy, what do you think? I feel like I've seen the text part. I don't think I've gotten any sort of calls. And I have to be honest, even to everybody who's listening out there, I never answer numbers that I don't recognize. So maybe I wouldn't have gotten that. But I feel like I have gotten these text messages, the hellos and all of these other things. What about you, Tracy?
Honestly, I like you, don't answer my phone either. But lately I haven't gotten any texts that seem like AI. Mostly it's,
Okay.
hey, I'm so and so, and I need you to do this, but not like anything that's been generated. Or maybe it is generated and they've gotten so good that I believe it might be a human doing it. Maybe I'm being
Yeah.
scammed. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's part of it too, is like, can you tell the difference now? And this article suggests that we can't. I want to call out Tanzim's comment. Basically said spoofing of phone numbers, also websites are a big deal. And then he also said people are the weakest link, classic social engineering.
That is
and
the
that's
truth.
all these scams are playing on.
Yes.
It's risky. So I have not received a call or a voice audio scam, but I definitely have gotten some AI. And because I spend so much of my day writing and looking at other people's writing, I feel like I've got it figured out. I can quickly spot AI writing, and I can always tell. I can always tell what it's an AI versus a human being. And
Is it the way they put words together?
it is. It's just humans don't talk. Humans don't talk as good as AI do.
Yeah, I know.
I said it that way
I had
on
a feeling you were going to
purpose.
say that. Yeah. Yeah.
We make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
Even in good communication, we make mistakes, and AI is a little too perfect, and you spot it from a mile away. Now, it will get worse, and that will be how we no longer can tell. So this one, the fake you identity and verification fraud. And this one, I hadn't heard too much about it. So they said, think about it like this. You're having issues logging in, couldn't configure authentication app, or lost your phone. What could you do? Call customer service, and they would verify your identity using some trivial facts like your date of birth, phone number, or social security number. Even more advanced methods like take a selfie are becoming easier to game. The customer service agent, for all we know, could also be an AI, may very well oblige you and fake you and accord it all the privileges as if you would actually have called in. What they can do from the position varies wildly, but none of them is good. So this is kind of what Tanzim was referencing with the website and phone number spoofing. Super scary. You could call into what you think is a valid, legit support phone number that you found on what you think is a valid and legit website. And the person you're talking to is an AI voice that is trying to get and fish your information out of you. And, obviously I'm not going to ask if y'all have gone down this path, but
Unbelievable.
this is pretty scary.
That's
right.
scary.
Like, did y'all know this existed?
No, not at all. Tracy, did you?
I had no idea that was a thing.
No
Technology.
idea. No idea. So you all are telling me right now that the actual points that I use for verification to make sure I'm not being faked out are faking me out. So the fake out of the fake out makes me faked out.
Right, because you're calling into what you think is a valid help support hotline. They're running through the traditional process, which you give your date of birth, maybe you give them your zip code, maybe your social, if it's a bank or something like that. but you've been spoofed at multiple levels, and now you're just volunteering this information to a bot that's stealing from you. You're phishing yourself, basically.
Yeah.
It's wild.
That's scary. Mostly scary from my perspective because I don't see a way to combat that. I mean, maybe this is what's led us to the world of, multi-factor authentication. I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm thinking as I'm kind of talking to you because there's literally no way for me to discern whether this is real or not. So now, of course, I've got to put 5 more stopgaps in it to really, really, really make sure.
Yep. And I think, best practice, they mentioned multi-factor authentication. I think another good one is don't just go to a link that is just readily available. Start at the source. So like if you're going to, Discover Bank's support hotline, go to discover.com, log in, then go to the help contact us. Like take the time to get there validly, as opposed to just Googling what is Discover's support number. Because you never know what you're going to click. Yeah. It's more work, it's more effort, but be Sherlock Holmes of the links you peruse and pass. This one, AI generated deep fakes and blackmail, which this one's horrific, right? Like they're using pictures, voice, video of you that is not real and telling you need to pay money to go off and make this thing go away. They even say like no one's happy with the situation except for the bad guys. There's a couple things for potential victims. These models may produce realistic bodies in some way, but like other generative AI, they only know what they've been trained on. So fake images will lack any distinguishing marks, for instance, and you would likely be obviously wrong in other ways. And I think this one's really important, right? Like don't feed the AI more things than you need to, right? Like we all have social media. We all do live podcasts once a week where we put our voice and faces out there. And now I've subjected Tracy to this. And, we're all becoming part of this system.
It's true.
But like, don't just put things out there willy-nilly to do it, right? Do it with a purpose and make sure that they can't use that against you. So
that's right.
Personal things like birthmarks, things like that, keep those to yourself. That way, if there's a blackmail scam, you can quickly call it out and say, hey, that's not me. I can prove that. And I can prove it in a court of law. And don't give them anything else either. What do you guys think about this one?
I will say the AI voice impersonation might be one of the scariest ones for me. Don't forget my parents, but I will say they're probably not the most tech savvy. And I've just gotten through telling them, don't click on links in your text, don't do this. And then after telling them, hey, if a voice calls you and it sounds like me saying that, you need to send somebody money to release me, don't listen to that. Except yesterday, I'm over here calling them on anything that I have, trying to connect to them because of this storm. Like, this isn't the phone number I normally call you from, but it is me. Trust me. Like, how do they distinguish the difference?
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. It might be worth, you just gave me a really good idea. It's like establish a safe word with, parents and loved ones that it's a password, right? But only you agree to, hey, just in case we ever get, separated or lose our phones, we'll use this phrase to make sure that we know we are who we say we are. And it's all up here. It's not out there.
Mine's motorcycles.
Sterling, it can't be that obvious.
Oh, damn it. It's out of the bag now.
So I just thought this was a really great article and some really good tips in there. And I advise anyone to go check this out because it's kind of like you were saying, Tracy, like it's not us you need to be worried about for the most part. I think technical people and people who spend time around technology, we're pretty good at spotting these things. A fun fact I learned in the past is, the whole Nigerian prince email scams that
Do I ever?
A long time ago.
Yep.
So those scams and scams like them were riddled with typos and formatting errors, and they just looked bad. Mm-hmm. And did you know that's intentional? It's by design. This is not because the people who made those emails were uneducated or not smart or unintelligent.
Really?
It was actually intentionally done because when phishing for a sucker, you want someone of lesser intelligence who wouldn't spot those things in the first place. So they actually use the typos and the formatting as a filter because we see it and we say, I'm not touching that. they must think I'm an idiot if I'm going to fall for this scam. And they don't. They're getting you out of their filter. And they're looking for someone who would click that because they know they don't have the means to deal with it. Yeah.
When you first started saying that, the beginning of your sentence there, I'm like, wait, what do you even mean? They're literally fishing. No offense there, but they're literally fishing for dummies.
They're fishing for dummies.
And so what you're saying is if we spot that, we see it, okay, good, I'm glad you saw it. We don't want you anyway because you're just going to run me around and I won't get what I want from you. But if you're clicking on this and you're from, Kentucky and you really feel that you have a Nigerian prince that just needs you to send him 10 grand so that he can send you $1 million, then go ahead and click on this.
Right. It's a filter. And that's my worry, right?
That's interesting.
With AI, we're going to be able to spot it. Like, I don't have 6 fingers. What are you talking about? Like, but our parents, they don't know about, how the AI can fail and falter. Those who are less technically savvy, they're going to see these things and they're going to fall for the bait. And they're going to use our data and our information to do this. So it's up to all of us. Unfortunately, I got a Johnny Raincloud it. Like we all have to be better when it comes to cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
In our personal and business lives to help those who can't.
Absolutely. As scary as this is, we need to be aware of this stuff. It's really the only way to sort of combat it, to second guess it.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's the depressing news I have to share with y'all today. Yeah. So,
as always, thanks, Anthony.
You're welcome.
I'm going to get off and go lock my doors twice.
Yeah. And change your passwords. Just change your passwords. It's good. It's good hygiene to do that. Well, indeed. Thank you again, Tracy, for joining us today. Yes. We always like to do a little around the horn at the end. Any takeaways? Anything you're going to fear for your life about or go change in your life after the show?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And honestly, my whole life, I need to change my password. I need to not use my YouTube on my work laptop, even though I have to log in to watch your podcast to comment. So right? I didn't even think about that until you brought it up.
Yeah.
It's a strange, fickle world we live in. But
absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
What about you, Sterling?
The threats never stop coming. I think my main takeaway from this really was that AI, the deep fake, specifically of the voice. Tracy mentioned her parents, my dad as well. And that's really where I think I need to just go back and just have an anecdotal conversation about it with him, just making him understand what these threats are and that they're coming. But once again, we're in an election year and these things are only going to ratchet up for all kinds of uses. And so to me, it really draws home that these new threat vectors are getting smarter and smarter. And we somehow have to stay one step ahead.
I love that. And I think to add on to your idea and the floating ghost head idea from earlier, I'm going to get a phone number my parents don't have access to and pretend to ransom myself to them and see if they fall for it. And that's how we will see if they've passed my own security training. So take the time. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that might go viral in the wrong way, and then my parents will disown me. So
you're probably right. Can't wait to hear the results of that experiment, my friend.
We'll have to let you know next time on our Zero Gravity Live show. But until then, thanks again, Tracy, for joining us today. Matt is enjoying himself on a nice vacation. He'll be back with us either next week. Yeah, he'll be back next week. And we thank you all for watching. As per usual, stay frictionless, stay weightless. Stay zero gravity. We will see you all next week.